This Oklahoma Sooners offensive lineman showing out is great for OU.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. All customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket now through September 22nd. Again, that's a free 3-week trial of NFL Sunday Ticket by just betting $5 over at FanDuel from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. I'm John Williams. He's Jay Smith. And of the offensive line position battles that have been going on, there's been one that's kind of been flying under the radar a little bit as Oklahoma added Branson Hickman out of the transfer portal. The assumption, and is probably still the safe assumption, is that Hickman will be the starter. But as he's kind of been getting ramped up and getting going and making sure he has a good understanding of the playbook, Joshua Bates, friend of Locked On Sooners, has been making some noise in fall camp, Jay.
Yeah, it looks like we've got a good problem, right? We've got some competition, and supposedly Troy Everett's also starting to work out too. So the good thing is Joshua Bates has a really good understanding of the offense. I mean, he's still growing as far as the calls and stuff since he didn't really play a bunch last season, but he's come in, he's been stronger, been more physical. Brent Venables literally called him out on purpose and praised what he's been doing. And so, honestly, this sounds really good, especially for the first 3 games of the season. It's a great way to go ahead and break him into, a potential starting role for the future. Give Hickman time to get the offense down the way you want him to. I can totally see us seeing a lot of Joshua Bates from Temple into Houston and possibly even Tulane.
Yeah, and here's what Brent Venables had to say about Josh Bates when he met with the media last week. He says, Bates has been much more consistent. Number one, with his snaps, he's been a lot cleaner that way. Again, he's a guy that helps make everyone around him better because he loves to compete. He loves football. Again, I got a small Rolodex of guys that I could say the same thing about. He continued to say, but I just love guys that love to come to work every day. They love their brothers. They love the environment. They love to go to practice. They love to work. They love to compete. They know how to strain. They're just great examples. And that's why you're seeing him improve and get better. But he's also had a really strong impact with the guys around him in the locker room. And I think that says a lot about Josh Bates because, again, as you mentioned, that he's not a guy that's played a ton at Oklahoma. And if you're having a positive impact, but you haven't played, I think that says a ton about you as a player and a person.
No, I agree. That means that you're impactful not only on the field, but just with like your aura in general, right? Everything that you're doing around practice is showing that you want to be there. Like you want to be successful. You're putting that extra effort in. He's putting the extra time in, right? I've heard the players, I think he was one of them as well as a few other linemen, talk about how they've been doing a lot of things to kind of like help them kind of mesh and get their chemistry together. So they've been doing stuff outside of practice, spending time together, talking. I remember I saw the picture of them hanging out with Lane Johnson and learning some skills. I was like, all right, these guys is taking this seriously. And you want more guys like that, right? You want more guys that's going to take the time to do that extra because that extra is what sticks out once the season starts.
Yeah, and he's one that's been a fan favorite for a long time, even if he hasn't stepped foot on the field, just based on the mentality and the attitude that he has. And we saw a glimpse of that in the spring game whenever Michael Boganowski came downhill and put a thump on Bauer Sharp there in the flat. Josh Bates came over and took exception to it and got in Boganowski's face about it. Like that's the kind of dude that you want on your offensive line. That's the dude that you want to go to battle with because he's not going to take any mess from anybody. When his quarterback gets cheap shotted, he's not going to let that stand. I think back to the 2022 offensive line when Dylan Gabriel took that shot to the head. And I don't remember a single offensive lineman stepping up and standing up for Dylan Gabriel in that instance. If Josh Bates is having the influence that Brent Venables says he's having, I don't think that's going to be something that we see moving forward. But beyond that, he isn't going to play a significant role this year. I don't think. I think it's going to be Branson Hickman. I think they'll see some Troy Everett. I think what they want to do is they want to utilize the veterans, get those guys out there to help just benefit Jackson Arnold, benefit the rest of the offensive line. But if he's pushing Branson Hickman, if he's pushing Troy Everett, that's a great sign that, hey, they're going to have some long conversations and some, make some consideration for potentially starting Josh Bates at some point, even if it's early in the season or down the road later in the season. But it's a great sign that he's taking these steps and he's impressing his head coach, because there's a good chance you're going to need him to be your starter in 2025.
Yeah, and I'm on the opposite, honestly. I think that he's going to do enough to push himself at least above Troy Everett. Because remember, Troy's coming off of that injury, and there's one thing you don't want to do is rush an offensive lineman from a knee injury, right? Even if it's something per se small that, they go in, clean up, and they expect him to be back for the regular season. You want to go ahead and give him the opportunity to rest up and get further into the season and be a little bit more healthy, right? And so that's kind of where I disagree there, because I think if you can leverage now that Bates has been taking that ascend up, he's stronger. That's one thing I know that Venables made mention of, is just how much stronger he is, as well as the work ethic. And so you kind of want to take advantage of that and move him up, especially as he's learning the system, right? I know that him and Hickman still are trying to figure out, all the calls properly. Hickman has, of course, a substantial amount more experience because he's been a center before. But I know that Jacob Sexton has been helping them out with that portion of it. If Bates can pick up the offense a little bit quicker, there's a good chance that he's right there behind Hickman, rotating in at the 2 deep, or potentially starting some games depending on who they play against.
Well, and this is what you want to see happen, right? Mm-hmm. If you go get a transfer, that's fine, but you want to see that transfer being pushed by one of your homegrown guys. I always talk about the transfer portal allowing you to set a solid floor, and your expectation and your hope is that either the transfer portal guy exceeds that expectation or your homegrown guy does, like Josh Bates. Remember, Joshua Bates was the only dude from the 2023 recruiting class that stayed committed after Lincoln Riley left.
Yeah.
He was the only one committed through Lincoln Riley, and he was the only one that was still committed to, after Riley left, stayed committed to Brent Venables, and then they built that class from there, added Jackson Arnold, and then the rest was history with that really, really strong group. But he is a Bill Bedenbow guy. He's a Brent Venables guy. He's an Oklahoma guy. He's a program guy, and he's trusting the process, as we talked about with a number of dudes on this roster that are kind of just developing, biding their time, and looking to earn their opportunity, not expect an opportunity to be handed to them. And I think that's a great mentality and a great sign for the program.
Yeah, it is. That Venables was able to retain a guy like him kind of says a lot about the type of person that Venables is. On top of, it's of course a Bill Bedenbow recruit. The question of always with that is, all right, I'm going to commit to this offensive line coach, but what is this new offensive coordinator going to do? Is his system going to be beneficial to me? Because sure, your O-line coach is there to coach you up, but he still has to, in a way, put you in the box of what the offensive coordinator wants to run. And so with that high up tempo offense, I'm glad Bates saw that and was like, you know what? Lincoln Riley ran one similar to this. I can handle it. I want to be coached by Bill Bedenbow. Let's go with it. And now he's with Latrell, where it's going to be all about muscling folks here in the SEC. Him getting his weight up and keeping his work ethic high shows that he's definitely going to get himself SEC ready.
And getting to go against Dejon Terry, Dominic Williams, David Stone, Jaden Jackson, Grayson Halton, Davin Sears, getting to go against those guys every day in practice is only going to make him better and make the rest of the interior offensive line better as well. Yeah, it does. And Josh Bates is, again, he's got that ascending trajectory, and that's a great sign for Oklahoma and the present of the center position and also the future of the center position. A number of Oklahoma Sooners made CBS Sports top 151, but one dude was kind of slept on, and I don't quite get it. We'll discuss that next, coming up on Locked On Sooners. Summertime's over. Back to school shopping's happening. You had to get all the school supplies. Now you're having to get stuff to pack lunches. You should be taking advantage of Ibotta. It's a great way to get cash back on all of your purchases. It's a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop, earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys. We went to church the other day. My daughter, 8-year-old daughter, had a little bit of blush on her. It took me by surprise, but that time is coming for her. She's going to be buying makeup at some point in the next few years. I'm going to have to take advantage of that with Ibotta and get that cash back. So right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. Just go to the App Store, Google Play Store, and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back on use code LOCKEDONCollege. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKEDONCollege for Ibotta. College football is back, and the Locked On College Football Podcast kicks off the action with a live season preview at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday, August 20, on the Locked On College 24/7 streaming YouTube channel. This 4-part series covers each of the 4 major conferences with discussion on which ACC, Big 10, Big 12, and SEC teams have a shot at the expanded college football playoffs. Jay was there with the Locked On SEC preview, so go be sure to check out that special streaming on Locked On College's 24/7 YouTube channel or on Amazon Fire TV, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So Jay, CBS Sports, Blake Brockermeyer dropped his top 151. I guess ESPN's 100 was not enough. He had to go to 151 and included 6 Oklahoma Sooners. I'm going to run down this list and you can tell me kind of where you're shocked, and you can interrupt me here. Danny Stutzman at number 28. I think that's we talked about it last week when he was at 32 on ESPN's list. You could make an argument for him to be higher, but I think that's a solid spot. Deion Burks at number 68. Again, a little bit higher than where he was on ESPN's list. Dasan McCullough coming in at number 127, the Cheetah. Interesting.
That's an
Ethan
interesting
Downs.
spot.
Yeah, Ethan Downs at number 130, the defensive end. Love to see Ethan getting a little bit of love. A dude that's been really, really solid. Plus, over the last couple of years, 4.5 sacks each of the last 2 seasons. Really, really good in the run game. And then this one is curious to me. Nick Anderson at number 144.
10 touchdowns.
800 receiving yards.
And you put him there at 144. I hate that they dock some wide receivers for the quarterback situation as if the quarterback didn't throw for 360-something yards in his first start, but whatevs. Nick should be higher than that, but I get they still want to see him prove himself. He get 1,000 yards this season. That dude's gone to the draft, period.
Yeah, 100%. But this is the one that's crazy. And if you're wondering where's Billy Bowman on this list, why haven't you said his name yet? Did you miss him? Did they just not rank him? Well, number 146, Billy Bowman, 146. That's like 70 spots lower than where ESPN had him.
Yeah. That's a massive drop. And I don't understand the disregard for Billy Bowman's skill set and what he brings to the table, right? Sure, he had some missed tackles over the last couple of years. I get that. He's also infamous for trying to do big hits. And the good thing is the way this defense is going to be shaped up, he'll clean that portion of his game up, and he's going to be a threat this season in the SEC, right? I mean, he's already trying to get more than 3 interceptions returned for touchdowns. He probably will end up with 4 because of his ability to make returns. I just don't get why he's always rated so low with everybody. Like, what is it? Because he's 5'11"? Why are we docking a safety who's going to be floating around for his height or for, the missed tackles here? I guess he's just going to have to prove it on the field again.
Yeah, it's wild that a dude can go have 6 interceptions and 3 for return for a touchdown and be considered. I mean, okay, he's a top 150 player in college football. That's pretty solid. There's thousands of college football players. To be a top 150 player, that's really good. But 70 spots lower than ESPN, when we thought ESPN maybe had it a little bit too low, but it could understand because of the missed tackles and some of the the misses in coverage. 6 interceptions and 3 return for touchdown. Like, that didn't happen by luck. That didn't happen by chance. The dude's really, 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 really good. And he's going to have another really, really good season this year and set himself up to be a top 100 pick in the NFL draft coming up in 2025. But yeah, I was talking to you about this earlier today, and not only is it surprising that Billy Bowman was ranked so low, but he was ranked 44 spots lower than former Arkansas quarterback, now UCF quarterback, KJ Jefferson. Now, KJ was solid. He was good. But was he that much better than Billy Bowman was? I don't know. He was not. He was definitely not that much better than Billy Bowman was.
No, zero chance. And I don't get how. Look, KJ Jefferson's a very interesting player, and he's going to be fun to watch there at UCF, right, with that system by Gus Malzahn. But, yeah, I'm not taking KJ Jefferson over Billy Bowman. I'm not. And it's wild that they really believe that Bowman should be that low in the rankings. And even going through the list of players, I mean, I know that they made some adjustments because, injuries or whatnot. They pulled CJ Baxter out from Texas because, of course, he ain't playing. Dante Corleone, he's out with a health condition, so he's been pulled out. But the fact that, let me see, your safeties up here at the top, you got Starks as well as Caleb Downs in your top 20. There's a lot of questionableness within here. Isaiah Bond is 14. I'm sorry. There's nothing about Isaiah Bond that tells me he should be above Deion Burks.
That's some Texas hype right there.
Right, because him and then Quinn Ewers right behind each other, 14 and 15, which is even more fascinating that they got Quinn, and then, of course, they got Banks up there. They got a whole bunch of Texas dudes in the top 10, top 20, and we got to see if they're actually going to last. To me, I would like to see a little bit more hype around Nick Anderson, especially being the fact that he's 6'4", roughly 220 pounds. Teddy Lehman said it. I'm going to keep repeating it. If he was with any other team, we'd be hyping up a 6'4", 220-pound wide receiver that runs roughly a 4.5, 4.4 40-ish speed, right? And had 10 touchdowns last season.
Yeah,
we would be talking about him all the time. I'm hoping that he gets his due this coming season when he's competing for Biletnikoff.
There's going to be opportunity because they're still working Andrew Anthony back. Jalil Farouk's been recovering now. He's back healthy, but he's been working through a toe situation. Which, man, if you're a wide receiver and you got toe situations, that can linger and that can re-aggravate and things like that. Not wishing that, but I think Nick Anderson's about to have another big season for the Sooners, and now he's going to be in a featured role. Whereas for much of last year, really through the first 6 games of the season, he was in a rotational role. Yep. And then when Andrew Anthony went down, ascended into a starter spot and really took off from there. So I'm excited to see what he can do as a day one starter in this offense with Jackson Arnold, because Jackson Arnold will get it to him. He's not going to be afraid to throw into some windows, as we've discussed. And Nick Anderson's going to thrive because of that. He's going to have a guy that's willing to take some chances and give him some opportunities, even if he's quote unquote covered. So I look at this and I'm like, okay, Ethan Downs is really good, but if I had to choose between the two, give me Billy Bowman. Deshaun McCullough, he was really, really good too. A big part of that Texas goal line stand was Billy Bowman. So it's hard for me to think about this without thinking, okay, who would I want more? And it's I got to have Billy Bowman on this team. The athleticism, the leadership. Obviously, you got him on the team, but as far as these rankings are concerned, he's got to be higher. He's got to be at least around 100 or better. And I think ESPN kind of had it right. But man, this is some interesting stuff here from Blake Brockermeyer. Any other thoughts on this before we get to Bama?
You pointed out that leadership portion of it, and I think that that's a component that really should be taken in consideration. We know that he's going to be one of the main guys on the defensive side, calling plays, pointing things out, and I think that that's what's going to help him in his draft stock, right? Being such an integral part of the way the motor runs on that defense. So as long as he cleans up, the typical things, like I said, the wrapping up, the hits, and making sure he's not getting beat on big plays, his outstanding season is going to lead to him getting drafted. So we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and some of those big hits, they pay off. Just ask Quinn Ewers and Jatavian Sanders. So
it's true.
The Oklahoma Sooners going to have a huge home game when the Alabama Crimson Tide roll into Norman in November. It's going to be a huge one. We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
You've heard us talk about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Well, we have something a little different for you this time. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers that bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. That's right. Free trial. That's dope. For 3 weeks. Then with YouTube TV's base plan, you'll be able to watch every single regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. So you got to check it out over there at FanDuel. Right now, one of the bets that I'm checking out, Oklahoma is plus 7.5 against Texas for Red River. They're giving us an early number. That's dropped. It was like at 9, I think, when it opened. Went to 8.5
yesterday.
8.5 yesterday when we talked about it. Now it's 7.5. Obviously, people are recognizing that you may want to give Oklahoma some love. So check it out over there at FanDuel. Visit them, FanDuel.com/locked on to download America's #1 sports book.
The Oklahoma Sooners get the benefit of the Alabama Crimson Tide coming to Norman this year. Next year, we'll have to go see Roll Tide Roll in Tuscaloosa. This is a fascinating game.
My goodness.
A little bit of the shine rubbed off whenever Nick Saban retired, but I don't think too much because Kalen DeBoer is a fantastic head coach.
Yep.
And he's won at Fresno State. He won at Washington and now has a chance to do some things with Alabama. And while Nick Saban is retired, Nick Saban is still in the building. He's still around the program. And so I'm sure Kalen DeBoer is getting advice from Nick Saban as they put this thing together. It's going to be a really talented roster. Jalen Milroe is a really good quarterback and now gets to work under Kalen DeBoer. So I look at this team and it's easy to maybe downplay what Alabama's capable of, Jay, but it still feels kind of like Alabama.
Yeah, the fascinating thing about DeBoer coming here, as you mentioned, he's had success at every stop that he's had. I mean, I know his coaching record is ridiculously high for someone that's been coaching for a good 6-7 years. I don't even think he has double-digit losses in his career so far.
He was in FCS for a long time, and yeah, he's crushing it at the FBS level.
Exactly, and so the big thing is, and it's no shade to Washington, he's going to a team with probably the most talent he's ever had in just one place. I mean, the blue chip ratio says it all, right? There's more blue chip ratio here this year than it was at Washington last year. And so now the Milroe piece is where I'm the most intrigued. He did a fantastic job with Michael Penix, but it took 2 years to really get to that point, right? I'm wondering if it'll take an additional year for Milroe to really settle in with him and go, because Milroe is he's very athletic and he's got a strong arm. His problem has been placement, really, and holding the ball a little bit longer than he needs to. I wonder if they can break that with him on this first year. And of course, the good thing is by the time we see them at this point in the season, we'll know what Alabama is. We'll know exactly who they are, what to prepare for, and all of that. So I'm kind of intrigued at what things look like with Milroe. Do you think it's going to take them a year, or can they make it happen this coming season?
Well, I think one thing what's good about Kalen DeBoer and the way that he coaches is I think he's going to play to Milroe's strengths. So I don't think he's going to have him back there, dropping back like Michael Penix 40, 50 times in a game and letting him just sling it down the field. Obviously, that'll be a part of their passing offense, but he's going to utilize quarterback run. He's going to utilize the read option game to take advantage of Alabama's offensive line, take advantage of Jalen Milroe's athleticism and running ability, and Alabama's running backs and what they're capable of. So, I think he'll have a better passing season than what he did last year, which, last year he was really good. He didn't turn the ball over a ton. I think it took him a few games to kind of settle in, but after the Texas game, I thought he was really, really good the rest of the season and kind of erased some of the narratives surrounding him from that early part of the year where he got benched and then kind of had to earn his job back. And I think Jalen Milroe is going to be somebody who I don't know if he'll win the Heisman, but he'll be somebody that we talk about at the end of the year and be like, man, Jalen Milroe really had a good season, and Kalen DeBoer is going to be able to unlock some of the things that maybe they didn't have figured out quite yet with Jalen Milroe. I mean, he's still a fairly young player in a snaps sense. You know, he hadn't played a ton. Right. And so it's a guy that's still developing, and we've seen Kellen DeBoer do really, really good things. I mean, I don't think anybody would have said Michael Penix at Indiana could have turned into a top 10 draft pick. Well, Kalen DeBoer did some big things with him during his time at Washington. So I'm not going to sit here and doubt what they're going to be capable of. And getting to play with Alabama's offensive line and Alabama's skill set at wide receiver and tight end and the running back room, I think it's going to be a really, really interesting challenge for the Oklahoma Sooners, because that's going to be a really talented team from a roster standpoint, from a blue chip standpoint. It's going to be the quote unquote most talented team that they'll face this year. And especially, like you said, by the end of the year, we'll know where these two programs are, but that's going to be a big time game. If Oklahoma has college football playoff expectations and they want to make it, this is one of those games they're going to have to win.
Yeah, exactly. And like, even looking at the blue chip ratio or whatnot, yeah, this is going to be probably this will be the most talented team that we will see by and far, right? 88% on their blue chip ratios. Pretty darn high, right? So DeBoer's got all the pieces to play with and work with. So I guess the question is, for me, when I'm looking at the matchups that's coming up, right? Which battle is most intriguing to you? To me, I'm going to be honest, you would think it would be trenches. I'm intrigued by the linebackers going up against that running back room, right? Bama's infamous for always having some backs. And I'm ready to see what these linebackers do against that running back room. What do you got? What do you think?
I mean, that's kind of where I was thinking when you started asking the question, because and to take it a step further, I think throw in Jalen Milroe. So Danny Stutzman versus Jalen Milroe is going to be the key matchup in this game, because the quarterback run game is going to be a big part of it. And what he does at the line of scrimmage and what the offensive coordinator for Alabama does, Kalen DeBoer, the adjustments they make versus Brent Venables and Zach Alley and Danny Stutzman and the adjustments they make, all of that's going to matter. And Stutzman is going to have several opportunities to bring down Jalen Milroe. That'll tell the tale a lot of times, especially in short yardage situations.
I wonder if they bring Kinnick in to spy in that game, right? Mainly because of the speed. Like you said, Milroe's a fast dude, very athletic, and when he gets going, he is borderline gone. But if you can get Kinnick, if it's all clicked in Kinnick's mind and he's starting to get to that Stutzman status as far as his ability, and you put him out there and he's just out there spying and following the fast dude, he just burst on the scene and go after him. That may be a solid strategy. Now, I'm not saying that, I just made this up. There's probably a very good chance that, Coach Alley has been thinking about this entire time, recognizing where his talent is in that room. But yeah, this is probably the moment. This is probably one of the games, probably one of the 3 games this season that Kinnick's really going to have an opportunity to shine, because he does have that specific skill set of being fast and being strong to where he could probably stand out compared to everybody else.
It's going to be a very, very interesting and fun matchup. I think when everybody found out about the Oklahoma Sooners SEC move, getting Alabama to Norman, I think was top priority among any program across the conference. Getting Alabama in Norman was the one that everybody was looking forward to, and that's happening year 1. So it's going to be a fun time. No matter how Oklahoma season goes, when Alabama rolls into town, you'll have a chance to either earn yourself a spot in the playoff or play spoiler to maybe Alabama's hopes of making the playoff, or both. You might be able to do both. And that's going to be a good time, because that's the team that, I mean, you lost to them in the college football playoff, and that's the team that's kind of been the best team in the country over the last decade and a half. So even though Nick Saban's gone, it's a big measuring stick game for the Oklahoma Sooners football program. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. And thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers. And again, go check out the Locked On College Football podcast for your second listen. From NIL deals to never-ending conference realignment rumors, Spencer McLaughlin gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron. You can find the link to Locked On College Football in the description, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can follow Jay at Unfair Sports, myself at John 9 Williams. The show is on all the socials at Locked On Sooners, so go check it out. Subscribe wherever you do your socials. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We'll catch you then. Boomer
Sooner.